oftentimes the gratitude is reciprocated, and that other person then shares back what they appreciate about our relationship. And I see the effect of that in teams, in organizations. The more that you can share that appreciation among members, then it strengthens their bond and their connectedness, which also leads to enhanced performance.
Welcome to Engage Presents. I'm Engage co-founder and president Jake Olson. In this interview series, I ask Engage talent the most common questions we hear from event planners to help you get to know them and their stories in 15 minutes or less. Thanks for listening. Welcome to another episode of Engage Presents. I'm Engage president Jake Olson. Alongside me today, a very special guest, Dr. Nicole Gabana Chiesa. Dr. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jake. I'm happy to be here.
Dr. Nicole is a licensed sports psychologist, a certified mental performance consultant, and my personal favorite, a gratitude expert. So love that. You were one of the first people to ever kind of study kind of how gratitude and this mental performance and athletic performance really kind of pairs up. And that really interests me as both an athlete and someone who cares a lot about gratitude, uses gratitude. So can you just walk us through some of those insights you learned and what really stands out?
Absolutely. Well, my interest in gratitude in the athletic population was combined with positive psychology and sports psychology. So I taught both of these courses to undergrads at Indiana University when I was in my PhD program, and it piqued my interest in researching the area of gratitude and its effects on mental health and well-being. And so I was working with a lot of athletes and teams and coaches. And so I started researching how we can use gratitude as a mental skill or an intervention with individuals and also with teams and coaches to enhance things like mental performance, resiliency, um, reducing burnout, reducing psychological distress, enhancing team cohesion. And so it just seemed like a perfect fit where the area of positive psychology looks at what's going well and what contributes to flourishing organizations, communities, relationships. And sports psychology is focused on when performance goes well. And so it just seemed like a natural, organic combination for me.
Dr. Nicole, you're speaking my language. I love everything you just said. I know it's true because I put it into practice, and it's exactly as you say, and that's so cool. I was gonna save this question until later, but I think you kind of mentioned it. How much of that, interpersonal kind of asking people to express gratitude? I know you work with different teams. Obviously, you said you work with Fortune 500 companies, individuals, but when you do speak specifically, how much interaction do you have with the audience of them going through the practice of gratitude, whatever that looks like in the room?
Sure. So it depends on the needs and the requests of that particular group or organization. So I always try to start by listening to what the team is looking for. I encourage teams to be open to interactive presentations because that's what I personally love. For example, a lot of times I will start my presentations with a 1 minute gratitude recall where we will reflect on our day to the point of the presentation. I'll have people either speak out loud or type in the chat all of the things that they can identify that they were grateful for to that point in the day. And then we do some reflective sharing after, and I love to start our sessions in that way, the presentations in that way, because right from the gate, it gets people engaged with a hands-on gratitude exercise. One of the things that I really enjoy about these presentations is getting to participate myself. And so as I'm reading and listening to the attendees' feedback and their stories and just what they're sharing, I notice myself smiling. I see smiles on my screen, and you can just see it's palpable, just the energy that is present in the chat room. on the cameras and just in the sentiments and the perspective as we see it shift. So I really like the interaction. I also do other activities such as having participants stop and either send a text or an email to someone that they appreciate, verbally expressing what they're grateful for and specifically what they appreciate about having that person in their lives or something that they did for them. We also do like spontaneous gratitude sharing on various topics. I've done gratitude imagery scripts that reflect on, slowing down people's process of appreciating their bodies and what their body can do for them. That's one I do with athletes a lot, but it can also work for business people, professionals. So I love the interactive component, and I am willing to infuse as much of that as possible that the team and the organization is looking for.
That's amazing. I kind of wanted to ask you just to share a time in your life, in recently or far back as you can remember, where kind of even 2 answers ago when you're saying how you're deploying that strategy of gratitude, even coexisting with other feelings of frustration or anger, sadness. But is there a time where you really deployed, gratitude and that was the difference maker?
Absolutely. I mean, personally, one that comes to mind is my dad, my biological father, passed away in 2019. And in the few years before his death, we had kind of a complex relationship. And I decided to write him a long letter of gratitude where I consciously chose to focus only on the good things that I received from him through my life. Now, I had a lot of other emotions and experiences and frustrations and things over the years. He died when I was 30. So you can imagine the history, but I very intentionally and consciously chose to focus on only the good things that I could remember and that he taught me that the memories and experiences I had with him, and I put that into a letter and I read it out loud to him
Wow.
just a couple years before he died. And there were, within me, there were still a lot of memories, history, frustrations, things that were hard to forgive at times or just hard to get over personally. But because I saw the impact of gratitude letter writing, I was involved in a clinical research study during grad school. I implemented this in my positive psych courses. I implemented it with my individual athletes and teams. And I saw the impact of, just writing a letter of gratitude, sharing it out loud with someone, and
Yeah.
having that interpersonal connection. It can be a little awkward and uncomfortable too, but I can honestly say that was one of the things that I was most grateful for because I had the opportunity to do that before he passed away. And I think it's possible to do it even after, or even if you never get to read it to that person, just consciously sitting down and trying to only identify the good and really let the other things take a back seat for a moment. It can be very healing, and it's really interesting, like the graces that flow from that, in my
Yeah.
experience.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mhm.
Um, let's kind of switch to performance. So obviously, certified mental performance consultant, either if it's an athlete in a game or let's talk about like an executive, in the boardroom. How does this kind of positive psychology, gratitude all revolve around someone both using their everyday routines, which we kind of talked about, but specifically performance? How does that relate to someone trying to be the best performer?
Absolutely. Well, I think in high performance, we often focus on what needs to be improved. Elite performers, 99% may be going right, but they're going to focus on that 1%. And oftentimes the coaches or bosses are focusing on the 1% that can be improved. And so in traditional psychology, that it is built on a medical model, which is focused on identifying what's going wrong, what the disorder is, and how to fix it. And positive psychology is concerned with the other half of the picture of what is going well, how can we enhance the strengths that someone has. And so I love working with elite performers because they don't often get to talk about their strengths and the good things that are happening. And I see that when they're able to do that, it helps them to balance their perspective. It increases their confidence in their abilities. It reminds them of how many successful performances or their training that they've put into their efforts thus far. It helps them keep perspective when they're having low days. It helps them keep perspective when they're having high days too, because sometimes if you get overconfident and you kind of forget your humility, that what you have is a gift, then sometimes that can lead to performance detriments as well. So I think it balances perspective and it also creates a mental agility by helping us to regulate our emotions, to regulate our experiences, to keep an optimistic perspective, and also to enhance interpersonal connectedness. So, one of the effects that we found in our gratitude studies was that people were more likely to utilize the social support around them when they were expressing gratitude for it. Because when we think about it and reflect on who we can appreciate and who has been there for us, it's more conscious. So then when we find ourselves in difficult times, we're more likely to recall those people or recall those resources and then reach out to them for help. We also see that when people exchange gratitude, like when I share gratitude towards someone else for something they did to me, oftentimes the gratitude is reciprocated and that other person then shares back what they appreciate about our relationship. And I see the effect of that in teams, in organizations. The more that you can share that appreciation among members, then it strengthens their bond and their connectedness, which also leads to enhanced performance.
That's awesome. Now, I never thought about it that way. That's fascinating and so true. Okay, so lastly, let's. I know the smart individuals can probably listen to this whole interview and hear what you've had to say, what you shared, and really take it and run with it. But let's put it like on the very bottom shelf for those who are really struggling. And if there is someone struggling with just being grateful in their life, who needs a perspective shift, who needs strength, they're anxious all the time, and they just cannot get over that hump to see the other side where gratitude exists. What are some, real life kind of tools that you can give them that they can do today in order to kind of start moving towards that direction?
Absolutely. Well, I think first just acknowledging that that's hard.
Yes.
That is very valid and challenging and that we all find ourselves in those circumstances at times in our lives and we are not trying to paint a picture that everything is positive and perfect all the time. So just acknowledging that with gratitude comes, reality and that we don't have to choose one or the other. So just knowing that it's okay to be in a hard spot, and that gratitude is meant to help you through that rather than to dismiss or deny the reality of your circumstances or your suffering. Um, One of the things that I use with my clients is having them, write down like the worries or concerns that they might have, the anxieties, the challenges, the negative thoughts, to put that down on paper, get it out of their head, and then using that list as a way to kind of respond, because I think sometimes we have these thoughts or we have these fears and worries and they're just swirling around in our brain and we just automatically accept some of the fears or the helplessness as true because we're thinking it. And sometimes we can't just accept the thoughts at face value that come into our mind. We have to respond to our thoughts. And so that's kind of what we call self-talk in sports psychology, is that we're not just automatically accepting everything that we're thinking as true, but we have to learn how to respond to our thoughts from a grounded, like inner core space of our deepest sense of self.
That's beautiful. Well, Dr. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. It's probably one of the more important interviews we've ever done. Absolute truths that you've been giving us today. And if you want to learn more about Dr. Nicole's research, obviously book her to come speak. please visit letsengage.com. You can check out our profile there. But Dr. Nicole, please do not stop what you're doing, the people you're influencing. We are grateful that we get to help you preach this message because it is absolutely life-changing. Again, I cannot express to you how much, as you're talking, I'm sitting there just thinking about all the ways that I've used that, and it's got me through, again, very, very tough situations. So thank you so much for being a preacher of that and continue to do so.
Thank you, Jake. It's a pleasure.
All right, stay tuned for more Engage Presents.